What's up, you guys? Welcome. I'm currently live on TikTok, so if you guys are seeing this on YouTube, you guys are catching the live replay. So let's see what questions that people have for us today. If any of you are interested in getting your own natal chart reading, all of that information will be in the description box below. One life path meaning, yes. One life path meaning is very interesting because it basically means that you're here to either start something new, start some sort of new cycle. Also, one life path number can be, again, you're here to be a leader, you're here to lead, maybe be a manager, maybe be an entrepreneur. That's what one life path number is all about. In terms of numerology, I only know surface level. So if you want to learn even more, definitely Google it and you'll get more information. But that's what one life path number is all about. It's all about, again, being number one, starting something, initiating something, being in leadership roles, leadership positions, these types of things. You're welcome. Saturn retrograde in the 8th house. Absolutely, I can talk about that, Claire. Okay, so when you have Saturn retrograde in a natal chart, it basically means the absence of a father figure early on in life, okay? So it could be mental, emotional, physical absence. Maybe he was physically present, maybe he was emotionally absent, maybe he was working all the time, these types of things, okay? So that's what the retrograde means. Now, when you have Saturn retrograde, it can also mean that you now struggle with boundaries. You struggle with your own internal masculine energy. You struggle when it comes to asserting yourself and being authoritative because the energy is more so internalized versus it being externalized. Because when we have retrogrades happening, the energy is more so all about that RE, right? Reflect, rest, it's all internal. So that's what Saturn retrograde overall means in your natal chart. Now, you have it in the 8th house. So Saturn in the 8th house, there's a lot to say. Always, I say definitely check out my YouTube channel and check out my video on Saturn in the 8th because whatever I say is going to be scratching the surface. So Saturn is the planet of karma, okay? And it's also the planet of the father, the authority, the authoritative figures in your life. And sometimes I see it as the area that you're meant to master in this lifetime. So when you have Saturn in the 8th, you're basically meant to master vulnerability, being okay with being vulnerable, being okay with expressing, your emotions. Sexuality is going to be a theme in here as well. Okay, when you have Saturn retrograde and whoever was that dominant masculine role in your life, now whether it's a father or the dominant male role in your life, masculine role overall, whether it's teachers, whoever it is, they restrict this area for you, okay? And then for you on top of all of that, it's retrograde. So it's even more so internalized. That's the thing. So it's like when you have it retrograde in the 8th house, all these things that I mentioned, you're experiencing more so on an internal level. So maybe writing, to get it out of your system, journaling, these types of things. If you can speak things to people and communicate in that way, right? That's also going to be very, very helpful, but it's more so internalized versus it being externalized. Welcome to all the people joining. I am answering astrology questions. So if you guys have any questions about your natal charts, if you guys have any questions about astrology or metaphysics, feel free to comment below. I'm not doing any predictive questions. I'm only answering questions about your natal charts, about astrology or metaphysics. So if you guys have any questions about your natal charts, feel free to comment below. Or you guys can give me a topic in that world and we can talk about it. We can talk about psychic life, being a psychic, your intuitive gifts, these types of things. So let me know below what you guys want to talk about. Welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So feel free to comment below. You said it's next to your south node, both in Aries. You thought you should let go of anything in the south node. So is it conjuncting? Is it conjuncting your south node? Is your south node also in the 8th house? Because then when I see South Node conjunct Saturn, what that says to me when I see it is like you have karma that you have unresolved from a past life that you've carried into this lifetime. So it could even be something to do with expression of the self, anything to do with like maybe being a leader, expressing who you truly are. Okay, you said both in the 8th house. Yeah. So that's how I see it. Sometimes when I see Saturn conjunct South Node in a natal chart, usually that tells me there's like unresolved karma, unresolved karmic issues. And it can also be unresolved karmic issues with the father in this lifetime that's carried over from a past life. So it's kind of like actually what I'm even psychically seeing is like, it kind of feels like you guys kind of follow each other in lifetimes and kind of like reverse the roles almost. That's really, really interesting how that's coming through. Let's see. So this is for SHISIH. Hey, welcome to everyone joining. I'm not answering any predictive questions. I'm only answering astrology questions and metaphysical questions and questions about your natal charts. Okay, So you said, hi, what is Moon conjunct Lilith in Libra in the 4th house? Okay, so you guys, Lilith in our natal chart is our shadows, okay? It's our dark side. It is our suppressed self. You can even say it is our, disowned self. It is the aspect of ourselves that we disown because they weren't loved, they weren't appreciated, these types of things, so you suppress them, okay? That's Lilith. So when you have Lilith in Libra in the 4th house, and it's conjuncting your moon, it's really, really interesting because it's like it's conjuncting your emotional world, okay? So there could be things that are like shadowy when it comes to your emotions. Maybe you struggle to express, right? When you have moon in Libra, you could kind of, want to be nice to everybody. You could be someone who is like, maybe sometimes you come off double face to people. You could avoid confrontation. Like these are the shadows, right? So when we look at Lilith, we want to see what is the shadow of that sign. So also having it in the 4th house, moon in the 4th house also can be a little bit of a struggle because it's like you could struggle with things like codependencies or issues, with the mother or like emotional neglect when it comes to the mother. So it's like, it's interesting because it's like you kind of internalize these things and now the Lilith is in there and you might have these shadows that you've now taken on without realizing. And that's the thing, the subconscious and the unconscious is so powerful that it's like when you're not aware of it, it's mainly in the driver's seat, right? So it's like, that's why you want to master the unconscious. You want to master your shadows because it's like, you don't want to be operating out of like your shadow self, right? Because it's like, it doesn't really serve you at the end of the day. So the 4th house can be anything also to do with like fears of being alone, codependencies, enmeshment with other people. So that's kind of what Lilith is telling you in there. It's like, you kind of want to see what is the shadow aspect of the self when you have Lilith in Libra in the 4th house. Maybe never, giving, a straight answer, maybe being kind of passive also could be something that takes place, or being passive aggressive, these types of things, okay? May says, Sun is in Scorpio, your rising is in Pisces and Aries moon. Do I think you would be a good actor? Actually, yes. You know what? There's a lot of actors and actresses who have Aries placements in their big 3. That is something that I've noticed. Sometimes they're starting some sort of new cycle, right? Within the family line. Maybe they're the first ones to become an actor in the family line. Pisces rising, musicians have Pisces rising. Pisces rising is going to be very dreamy, right? Like Pisces rising is going to be like very alluring. And Scorpio, there's a lot of good actors and actresses who have Scorpio sun or Scorpio anywhere in the big 3, because also ultimately Scorpio is seeking power and control in the current world that we're living in. Acting and these types of things can potentially lead to that, right? So you'll notice a lot of Scorpio placements are going to be in this industry, but also because they're just talented, right? They spend a lot of time observing people and understanding people, right? And then it's a matter of learning to portray it on themselves. And also, you guys, for Scorpio energy, it's a good outlet, right? For all these feelings that they're feeling that they might not necessarily want to actually express in their everyday life. They could channel that energy into their acting, right? So it could definitely be something that takes place. Hello, how are you doing? Welcome to everyone that is joining my live. If you guys have any questions about your natal charts, about astrology, about metaphysics, feel free to comment below. Claire says, do you think our souls stay in the same family tree throughout our lives? That's a very, very good question. Honestly, I have mixed feelings. I do have mixed feelings about that because it's like, okay, this is the way that I see it. For whatever reason, just like this is how I intuitively tap into it. It's like, I kind of feel like we're ending a huge cycle, just like in terms of like the souls and the soul group. So for me, it kind of just like feels that way. Do you know what I mean? So at this point in time, like I feel like a lot of souls have incarnated to kind of finish off cycles, right? So maybe in like previous years, my answer would have been different, right, than it is now. But it's like a lot of the time you're incarnating or you're attracted to people or all these types of things, or incarnating into families where you guys are part of the same soul group. But it's like sometimes it can be karmic as well. So it's complex, I guess. Let's see. What did you say? You read your chart and it said a major event would happen in April, nothing happened. And then you said, well, you got cheated on. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I know I try to stay away from predictive astrology, even though it's challenging because it's like, the more you know, you know what I mean? But it's like, I don't know. I like the element of surprise. So yeah, but it's like, yeah, it's definitely challenging to like know, right? And then it's like, sometimes you're like expecting it. And then it's like, I don't know, it kind of takes away from the spontaneity of things. So that's one of the reasons I don't do predictive astrology, because it's like, well, that's one of it. I have other reasons as well. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. You said if Mars is the boyfriend and Jupiter is the husband, what happens when these planets fall in the same house? Oh, that's interesting. I've heard different things in terms of like relationships and what to look for. in terms of even like Mars and Jupiter. Like I've never heard of it explained that way, like that Mars is the boyfriend and Jupiter is the husband. So that's really, really interesting, because a lot of the time, like even when people are looking at their charts, they're, I guess, always looking for the husband. So the main one that I know is like how to find your spouse and these types of things. So that's a good question. I wouldn't be sure. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all the people joining. Let me know what you guys would like to know about your natal charts, astrology, anything in the metaphysical world, in the astrological world. Yes, yes, yes. ABBS, definitely sending you some good vibes. No, I don't believe in cusps either. You're either in it or you're not, you know? But the thing is, okay, here's the thing. This is where I stand with that. I don't believe in cusps, so you either have that sign or you don't. But what I do look at are secondary progressions, okay? Thank you for the follows and thank you for the likes, you guys. I look at secondary progressions in astrology, so this is going to tell you how your chart progresses through time, and then it's going to tell you how you evolve through time, okay? So it's like, let's say you started off as maybe a Leo, right? In the earlier part of your life, like your sun is in Leo, eventually it's going to progress into Virgo. And eventually, let's say you live up until the age of 80, it's going to progress eventually into Libra, right? So when you're younger, you start off Leo sun and these types of things. So you have different planets moving at different times. And then that's what secondary progressions are all about. The moon changes every 2 years approximately. So it's like you're going to have the core of who you are, right? You can look at that as your foundational emotional world. But then depending on the phase of your life that you're in, you're going to be going through that particular progression, let's say in the moon sign. Okay, so that's the moon. And then you have other ones, like other planets move. It's mainly the personal planets that are going to be affected by that in your lifetime. The outer ones move slowly, right? So they all move at different speeds, but same thing with the rising. Some people can have their rising sign change up to 4 times within their life when we look at secondary progressions, right? Depending on where it started. So sometimes, like, let's say you're like a later degree, Libra rising. Well, maybe in the earlier part of your life, you progress into Scorpio rising, right? So it's like sometimes when you're watching videos and these types of things, maybe you're going to resonate more with like Scorpio rising, for example, or later on in life, maybe it's going to resonate more for Sagittarius rising. So I like secondary progressions a lot. You said you didn't know that you're Sag rising, then Sun, Moon, and Cancer. So it's really, really interesting to see the secondary progressions. It's really cool. Like I personally found that they resonate a lot with my natal chart. So that's why I like secondary progressions. It's really cool to see. And I always see it as like an overlay on top of the original personality that you have. So it's like you have the original, you know, chart. That's the snapshot when you were born, right? But then it's like, then there's a progression to see where you at today. What's going on, you know, maybe with the ego identity, which is the sun, or the rising, how are you appearing to the world, and these types of things. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. How do you pull secondary progressions? Yeah, you can go on any website. You can go on AstroSeek, just type in secondary progressions in the Google, right, search bar. You'll get that website like link to check out what your secondary progressions are. You can also go on astro.com under extended chart selection. You can see the natal chart, and then you can also see the secondary progressions, and then you can also see the transits, and then you can see the transits for the secondary progressions. Astrology is so complex. There's just like so many layers to it. Let's see. Your thoughts on Western versus Vedic sidereal astrology. Have ever been curious of Vedic astrology? Are you asking me if I've ever been curious about Vedic astrology? Yes. So I like both, to be honest. Like I look at both of my charts in both of the systems. It's just one of them resonated more for my chart. But the thing is, I've noticed a lot of tropical astrologers eventually move into Vedic astrology. Also, I like to learn. So I'm open to both systems, and there's a lot of different things you guys can learn. Like there's even like Kabbalistic astrology, there's Babylonian, like there's so many things to learn. So both are very, very interesting. You said, may you have a little advice if your North Node is in Cancer, but your midheaven, your North Node is in Cancer, your midheaven and Mars are in Capricorn, and it's in the 10th house. You said you want a little advice. Your North Node, thank you so much for the likes, you guys. Your North Node is in Cancer and your midheaven and Mars are in Capricorn in the 10th house. Interesting. Your North Node is in Cancer. So your North Node in Cancer, is it in the 4th house? Let me know. But your midheaven and Mars are in Capricorn in the 10th house. I mean, I like Mars in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn is like pushes through until the end. Like they are so good on this physical reality and in this physical plane, which is interesting because basically like this is really interesting that you brought that up, because the other day in my other live, and then I made the little like small video of it, but I was talking about how like the career and the life purpose can basically kind of happen, but not at the same time, if that makes sense. Like your career can be your career, but then you can also be living your life purpose, but your life purpose doesn't have to be your career, if that makes sense. And to me, that feels like a very good example of that, because the North Node being in Cancer, that could be the overall life purpose where you're being nurturing, right? And you're like helping people, and maybe you're nurturing something or whatever it is, right? But then you have your midheaven and your Mars, which is more so going to be probably the career aspect of things, where it's like you're going after it in a very Capricorn type of way. So you can kind of have both existing simultaneously. Hey, Nostalgia, how are you doing? You said they're both in the 4th house, and your Moon and Jupiter are in there as well. So you have Moon and Jupiter in Cancer in the 4th house, and it is conjuncting your North Node, also in Cancer. So I'm guessing your South Node then is in Capricorn. It's really interesting because, okay, your South Node is conjuncting your midheaven, and it's conjuncting your Capricorn. Okay, it's conjuncting your Mars, and it's all in the 10th house. Honestly, it kind of feels like there's something maybe even in the earlier part of your life that you kind of focus on that is like more so your career, and it's more so like you're finishing it up from a past life. But then it kind of feels like you shift afterward into a more Cancerian way of being. So for example, I'll just give you a random example. Let's say in the earlier part of your life, you're doing something that's like very like hustler, like corporate, like you're just focusing on that. And then it's like later on in life, you go more into the feminine aspect of things, where it's more about feeling and getting in tune with your feelings. And maybe you go more into like the nurturing aspect of things, like something like that. It kind of feels like, because it's like the South Node is your past life, right? So having the midheaven conjuncting that and having your Mars conjuncting that, it's like, it's almost like you're closing out something first before you kind of head into the North Node. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the likes, you guys. Welcome to the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You stopped being into astrology because so many people have misconception about it. It has a bad rep now. I know it's unfortunate, but you know what? The thing is, that's how you know who the real ones are and who are the people that are kind of just doing it because it's a fad. You know what I mean? Because it's like astrology is so complex, you know? And it's like, yes, well, we can have memes and we can joke about it. But it's like, if you aren't able to basically master the physical plane and master the physical reality, you're not doing it correctly. That's the way that I'm going to see it. Like, that's what I'm going to say. Because it's like astrology, they're the codes, right? They are the codes. So it's like if something isn't going in the direction that you want it to go in, then it's like something's off. Do you know what I mean? So it's like if you actually have a good grasp of astrology and what it means and how to use it and how to apply it, then you actually know what's up. That's really what it is. And that's kind of what separates the real ones, I guess, from the non-real ones. I don't know. What else are you guys saying? Okay, Claire said, how did you get into astrology and know it's what I want to do? Actually, it was a journey for me. And it's really interesting you asked that, because I actually have a video on my YouTube channel called How Did I Get Into Astrology, and it's 20 minutes. So I will not take up 20 minutes right now to explain. Thank you for all the likes, you guys. But basically, like the too long didn't read version was, and it's funny, it's tying in with what I just said. I was super obsessed with quote unquote being successful, whatever that means. So me being obsessed with that, I was like, okay, how did this person get to that position? How did that person get to that position? And then I would like research them and like try to learn about them. And yeah, that's basically how I got into it, because like you'd be surprised who uses astrology, okay? It's like, you would be very, very surprised. There's that quote, right? That millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do, right? So it's like, if we look at the world in a specific type of way, which I'm not going to get too much into, I'm going to kind of talk between the lines. So you guys are going to have to read between the lines. But it's like, if you look at who upholds power, right? It's a certain type of group, and they're the ones who are aware of these things, right? They use it. And if you start to pay attention, you'll notice that certain things start aligning in terms of numbers, in terms of dates, in terms of all these types of things. That's what it is. Also, you guys, what I'm going to tell you guys, back in the day, all kings and queens had astrologers. And I'll tell you guys, a lot of celebrities or like people who are, again, wealthy have psychics that they work with. Okay, so I'm just going to slip that in there. So definitely check out that video if you want to hear the full-blown journey. Okay, it's on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is called Barbara Talks. Let's see what else you guys say in here. People don't understand there's so many layers to it. Exactly, there's so many layers to it, and that's why I love it. That's another reason why I got into it, because I love to learn. So it's like, I love to learn. I love anything to do with esoterica, like these types of things, like theology, because everything's connected, right? And it's all about finding the connection between things. So it all comes back down to that, right? Everything is connected. And I always loved these types of things. I love mysticism. And it's interesting because it's like, when I got really into like learning to exercise my own intuitive gifts and these types of things, one person that like I went to like their workshop, and what they said and what just like stuck with me forever, she was basically like, a good psychic is someone who knows a lot of information. And then I was like, yes, I agree with that 100%, right? Because it's like, you never know how like you're gonna receive the information, right? Sometimes it's going to be a blip from a movie, right? And that's how you explain something to someone. If you're feeling into the feeling, it feels like this, right? Or it's like, if you're connecting something to this other thing, it happened during this era. So it's like, I don't know, it's all about knowing a lot of things is really what that is. And then it's like, the more you learn, the more you start to make the connections and these types of things. So that's kind of like how it goes, I guess. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. What do you think about Lilith? Oh my gosh, thanks so much for the likes, you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. I'm on Instagram too, but that's more so like my personal and like my stories and like my day-to-day, I guess. Jacqueline says, thank you. You're welcome, Jacqueline. Okay, back to nostalgia. You said, what do you think about Lilith in Aries? You're either a loner or everyone is obsessed with you. Yeah, you're definitely going to be a trendsetter. That's Lilith in, like, that's Aries in the 11th house overall. You're going to be a trendsetter. You're going to kind of just like be doing your own thing. And it's like, I think like, okay, this is the thing with like Aries energy. I think because most people are always kind of like, you know, wanting to be in like a unit, or like always kind of wanting to do something with other people. Aries isn't like that, right? Aries is very confident, independent, and does their own thing. And I think for people who aren't like that, I'm not going to say everyone, right? But for people who aren't like that, it's an attractive quality, right? So I'm sure you attract those types of people. You probably attract people who are codependent or just like clingy because of that energy, right? Where it's like Aries is just doing their own thing and they don't care, and they're kind of like going about their own way. And 11th house is similar, like the Aquarian 11th house energy is similar, but it's obviously different because it's the 11th house, right? But it's like, the thing is the 11th house like only wants to deal with people if it deals with like higher mind and higher knowledge and like some sort of higher purpose. You know what I mean? So that's what that is. Let's see what else you guys think in here. Welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. Let's see. Astrology says you have Pluto and Mars conjunct in the 11th house, ruled by Scorpio. What's my read on this? Okay, hold on. You have Pluto and Scorpio, so you have Mars and Scorpio. That's another one of my Mars placements that I really like, is Mars and Scorpio, because you guys, Mars and Scorpio understand the nature of this physical reality, and that it is metaphysical and that it is spiritual. So Mars in Scorpio is going to be very good at like manifesting, like left, right, and center. But it's like, the thing is, for example, for you, astrology, like you could be someone that's kind of like, if you're trying to bring through a goal or you're trying to birth something new, you could kind of just like go into this zone where it's like, I'm not engaging with anyone and I'm not talking to anyone until I bring this thing through, right? Because it's like, you're almost aware of like the whole, like how much energy you have to put into something, right? To actually like bring it through, to like birth it, to birth that creation. I just did my Mars in Scorpio video the other day. For those of you who are maybe watching the replay on my YouTube channel, yes, I have my Mars series coming out, but that probably won't be for a few days or weeks at least until I actually edit it and post it. But I was talking about that in there, where it's like, again, Mars and Scorpio, it's one of the best Mars placements, because it's like, because it's fixed water, right? So you're good at going after things, you know, and like anchoring them into this reality when you put your whole self into something. Now, what I will say is, like, if it's unhealed, if you're wounded, if you're distracted, if there's someone that's coming into your life and like draining your energy and these types of things, it might be harder, right? So that's why as time goes on and Mars and Scorpio becomes more mature, and like, again, it's that solar plexus, I always talk about it, like the identity, the trust in who you are, the belief in the self. Honestly, it's like they're manifesting like left, right, and center, because again, it's fixed water, right? So they're putting their whole emotional like being into whatever it is that they're manifesting, and that's what you need to manifest. It really is. So that's that, but you also have Pluto in there. Having Pluto and Mars conjunct, what I will say when it comes to conflict, it might be psychological damage when you're unhealed. So just something to watch out for. You know, sometimes Scorpio can have like the sharp tongue and the mouth and like that stinger, right? Like they really know where to hit people where it hurts. And sometimes it's like irrelevance. You know what I mean? Like when they're unhealed and they're in an argument, like they're gonna like bring up a person's shadows when that shadow has nothing sometimes to do with the argument itself, right? Like maybe there's an issue that's there that needs to be resolved, but it's like sometimes the Scorpio person is gonna come in and gonna be like, well, you're doing it because of this like unhealed wound that the other person probably has no idea even like is going on. You know what I mean? So it can like get very like intense and like, I guess, fiery, like explosive. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Also, you have it in the 11th house. So things that motivate you are going to be things to do with humanitarian issues, things for a larger cause, a larger purpose, helping a lot of people, humanitarian causes, and these types of things. And that's also the area at the same time that you are transforming through. Unhealed. I mean, I know, right? Like Scorpio energy, I have so many videos on Scorpio energy. It's like, it is such a good placement when it is healed. Like it is such a divine energy when it is healed. But when it's unhealed, it's unhealed. But what I will say, it's like for you to possess a lot of light energy, you had to have gone through a lot of darkness and you had to have gone through a lot of catharsis. And that is what Scorpio knows. They just know, they go through a lot of like, you know, destruction, tower moments in their life. You know, you like break apart and you build it all up again and you break apart until you stabilize. And then you stabilize and you're in that Phoenix rising state and you're like, okay, I get it now. Like I get it. I get all of it. I get the metaphysics of it. I get how it all works. You know, and it's like, and then you're un-F-withable. I'm going to try not to swear. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You write so much on the placement and my explanation is the best one that I've ever heard. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. My Mars videos will be coming out. I don't want to make any promises. It's either next week or the week after, depending on the editing aspect of things, because that does take a while. Let's see what else are you guys seeing in here. But I'm here in the meantime, live. You said you have a Scorpio sun, Leo moon, Capricorn rising. You said you feel like it clashes. I mean, you might struggle with the ego a little bit with all of that energy in there. And like, the thing is, it just is what it is. You know what I mean? Like people say Leos have a big ego. I feel like Scorpio has a bigger ego. But the thing is, it's like when Scorpio knows something is true, they know it in their soul, right? So nothing can change their mind. You know, that's the thing with Scorpio energy. It's like they know it on an intuitive, emotional level. So you can't make them budge. And that's where like the confidence for them comes from. It comes from the ability to navigate the emotional realms, right? Which most people can't do and most people are unaware of. So that's kind of where that comes from. But what I will say is with like all of that going on in there, the Scorpio sun, Leo moon, and Capricorn rising, you probably have been through a lot in your life and you're probably like, okay, you guys know that quote? Do you guys know that quote? Where it's like a diamond is made under pressure or whatever it is, like that's what that vibe is, you know, where it's like, again, a lot of like things have taken place, but it's like at this point in a way, like you overcome it, right? Yes, you guys said yes. Let's see. I will come back up. I just saw one question here. I'll come back up to you guys in just a second. You said, can you see in one's birth chart if he meant to do the twin flame journey? Oh, if they're meant to do the twin flame journey? Honestly, that journey is not for the faint of heart. But okay, here's the thing. Like, here's the thing with that. I know a lot of people say a lot of different things, and it's so funny because I was just thinking about this yesterday. Like, people always say this is an indicator and that is an indicator, but I feel like there isn't like a box, you know, like I don't think there's like a way to determine that. I feel like you just feel it. You know what I mean? Like you feel it on like a soul level. Let's see. I'm just going back up here. You said, oh, you have your sun in Libra opposite the Lilith in Aries. People definitely copy you. It is that 11th house energy. 11th house people start trends and sometimes prematurely. And you know, the struggle is, okay, so this is going back to the ego that I was talking about, right? And ego isn't bad, you guys. Everyone demonizes the ego. You need an ego to function down here. So like, we're going to disregard that, right? But okay, all of the fixed signs have an ego, right? In a different way. So we talked about the Scorpio's ego just now. Let's talk about the 11th house Aquarius ego. The Aquarius ego is that they are always the trendsetters. They start something and they never get the recognition for it and they're dying to get that recognition. That is the struggle with the Aquarius 11th house energy. It's like they're always starting something and it's like when they start it, no one's doing it, but then it's like all of a sudden everybody starts to do it and it's like, wait, hold on, I started this like 5 years ago. Like that is that 11th house energy. So that's why people copy you because you're picking up on the trends. That's the 11th house. The 11th house is very intuitive, right? And like a way where it's like, you wouldn't think that they're intuitive. Like it's almost claircognizant, right? Like they just get the idea, right? They get it in their mind is kind of how the 11th house works. And they like, don't think about it. They just kind of act on it. And then everybody else starts to follow. You guys are saying, yes, I'm so glad that it resonates. Yeah, that is what it is. And while we're on the topic of that, Yes, 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 yes. Okay, I'm not actually going to get into the Leo ego just yet. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. Unless you guys want to know about it. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. You have your moon in Pisces, and then you said SQA. What is SQA? But moon in Pisces, you're going to be very intuitive. You're going to be very feeling based, very psychic, very intuitive. Like, it's all about the feeling. It's all about the emotion. If something is off, you're going to feel it right away. And it's going to affect your mood. That's the struggle with water placements. It's like the person picks up on the energy sometimes without even realizing that they're picking up on it, and the mood like shifts. Most people won't notice though. This, like, the thing is, only another psychic intuitive person is going to notice. But like, I've noticed that on sometimes people who are very clairsentient, like let's say like they're in a room and maybe somebody comes in and that person, I don't know, just like came in and has some demon attached to them, like some dark energy, you know what I mean? And it's like, or they were just bad vibes overall. It's like the mood is just going to shift like so subtly. So that's the thing. Moon in Pisces, I'm also going to say like, watch out when it comes to like food and eating, because sometimes like the Piscean energy can just like disconnect from the physical body and just like go off into the ethers and like completely disconnect from the physical reality and just like be in the mind and the dreaming. That's the struggle. That is the struggle with Piscean energy. Also, substances overall are going to be very alluring to you. All substances, and definitely watch out for those for Piscean placements, because Pisces wants to be out of body, right? So they're always going to be interested in doing more things, like doing things that get them more out of body kind of thing. So that's the thing with Piscean energy. But honestly, you guys, anything to do with substances, it shoots you out of body even more. It opens up your aura. So definitely try to avoid it if you can. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. Oh, okay, then you corrected yourself. You have moon in Pisces squaring your Saturn in Gemini. What does that mean? I mean, the first thing that I thought of was like parents who were like headbutting types of energies, like the father and the mother. There could have been friction between the two of them, and then in turn you having the friction within your own internal masculine and feminine energy. Let's see. You've been into astrology since you were a little girl as a hobby and consider studying, you want to study Vedic. Yeah, do it. Honestly, do whichever one calls you and do whichever one resonates with your natal chart the most. And it's interesting because it's like, again, you know, you'll find truth in both of them. So it's like, I feel like everything is a piece of a bigger puzzle. So it's like, do whatever calls you, right? And it's like, if that's calling you, learn that one. And then if the other one's calling you, then learn the other one. And then if you want to learn something completely different and then make up your own method after you've learned it all, well, then do that too. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Setting you heart energy as well. Let's see. I'm going back up. What do Venus in Scorpio 6th? What do you think about Venus in Scorpio's 6th house? Would it make you mean? Well, that's a good question. Honestly, that's the thing with the Scorpio energy. I'm coming back to Scorpio, right? It's like Scorpio, when it's unhealed, can be very ruthless. Like, they can be very blunt. They can be very like insensitive with their words sometimes. Yes, it could be, but it's like when you're aware of that, you're not like that. Do you know what I mean? So like when you're unaware, I mean, what can you do? You're unaware, right? So I don't know. That's something that I'd have to look at your entire natal chart to see. But the thing is, what I will say, when you have Venus and Scorpio, you'll attract a lot of like obsessive, possessive types of people. And you might be like that also in your friendships, like earlier on, before you're aware, or relationships even. Let's see. What house do you feel Scorpio does best, and house where it doesn't, or even the sign? Can you reword your question? How would you describe your moon in Aries in the 6th house? You're Scorpio rising. Ooh, Scorpio rising. So moon in Aries in the 6th house, you're going to be very, very intuitive actually with the 6th house in there. And what I will say also about having moon in the 6th house is a routine is going to be really, really important for you. I'm curious to know about the rest of your natal chart. Moon in Aries in the 6th house. Moon in Aries, the thing is, you guys, when you have Aries anywhere in the big three, you're starting something that's like a new cycle, right? Within the whole family line, yes, but also for you on like a soul level. It's kind of like you're coming through to start something that is completely different and completely new. So let's say your whole family, everybody was a lawyer, boom, you come through, you want to be a cook, like things like this, right? Where it's like something that's different, or just overall, like on a soul level, you're starting something that's different. Maybe the whole family has a specific pattern that they do, boom, you come through and you kind of stray away from that, you know? So that's kind of like moon in Aries. It's like, it's a very leadership energy. It's very, also sometimes they can be very childlike. Like I can find them sometimes to be very naive. Because the thing is like, okay, what's really interesting about all of the signs is like within that sign, you have the preceding sign, right? So within like Aries energy, you always have Piscean energy, right? So it's like within Aries, there's a dreamer deep down inside, right? And it's like there's this like naivete connected to them where it's like they're dreaming and like there's like this like dreams of like life and like, you know, these bigger things like larger than life, right? Because it's like you have the undertone in there, right? So that's kind of what's happening with the moon in Aries. But what I will say is sometimes they can be impulsive, sometimes they can be reactive. I always think that Aries moon is good in like sports and things like this. Like you'll notice sometimes athletes have moon in Aries and these types of things, or anywhere, again, in the big three. But again, it has to be something individual, right? Where they're winning, you know, they're number one, these types of things. So that's moon in Aries. Again, you could be interested in management, being a manager, and these types of things as well. And Scorpio rising, I mean, honestly, I have a full-blown video on Scorpio rising. I called it Expect the Unexpected. That is Scorpio rising, okay? Because it's like, again, we're coming back to that ego that we were talking about earlier. When people think that you're one way for Scorpio rising, boom, they're gonna switch up and they're gonna do something different just because they can. That's the vibe, you know, like they switch up on people. Sometimes they do things where it's like, again, you know, they don't give people the full story. Like they'll tell this thing to this person and then it's like, you know, they'll switch up on them to like create diversions. That's where I'm getting at. Sometimes they create like energetic diversions. You said LOL. Okay, you said which house or sign do you feel Scorpio does best? Oh, that's an interesting question. It's so interesting because like, you know, today I was thinking that I was going to go live and then I was just like thinking in general, like regardless connected to the live, like I was just like thinking in general about like people's natal charts and I was thinking about like how everyone has Scorpio somewhere in their natal chart. So it's really interesting that you asked that. That's a really good question. I would have to think about that. Which house does Scorpio do best? That's a really, really good question. And it's really, really interesting because just earlier today, I was thinking about how everyone has Scorpio somewhere in their natal chart and how that would manifest. So I'd have to think about that. That would actually be a really good video. Actually, you gave me an idea. Let's see. Jupiter in Cancer, contra parallel with Venus Sag in the 11th house. I'm not sure what contra parallel means. Jupiter in Cancer, contra parallel with Venus in Sag in the 11th house. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? You're scared because you have a Virgo rising and it's Leo season. Augusts are rough for me. Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's like, it's almost like you're wrapping something up, right? Because it's like when we go into Virgo season, it's the first house for you, right? So it's like your 12th house is probably Leo. Is it? Is your 12th house in Leo? Let me know. Because it's like maybe you have a lot of karmic things that come up or something of that sort during Leo season. Let's see. Your friend's North Node is 8th house conjunct the sun. Yeah, you said yes, it is. That's probably why. I mean, part of the reason at least. Because it's like, you always want to see what house do you have that particular sign in. Also when there's any types of transits that are taking place, right? So when it's like Virgo season, it's hitting your first house. So it's like, you feel like you're shining, right? It's like your time to shine. But it's like when it's Leo season, it's your 12th house. So it's like maybe a lot of unconscious things come to the surface or karmic things or like things that you weren't expecting or seeing. So it could be that. Let's see. What else are you guys saying in here? Okay, back to Claire. You said your friend's North Node is 8th house conjunct the sun. And then you said yours is 2nd house conjunct the sun. That's very nice. What would you like to know about that? Kai says, thoughts on Juno falling in your partner's 7th house. You know what's interesting? I did a video on Juno. It's an asteroid. And I did it in terms of like figuring out who your future partner is or something of that sort. And then I heard somebody else say how they don't think that Juno would be a good representation of this because Juno's an asteroid, so it's not as strong. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And I thought that was really, really interesting because it makes sense. You know, when you think about it, it's an asteroid. Like, why would it be able to determine something like that? So let's see what else you guys saying in here. You love how I describe astrology. Yay, thank you. I'm glad that it resonates with you guys. Definitely check out my YouTube channel, you guys. It's called Barbara Talks. Brandon says, how would you describe having Jupiter conjunct Venus and North Node both in Cancer in the 8th house? So your Jupiter conjunct Venus and North Node, is all of that in Cancer in the 8th house for you? Can you talk about each of those? Do we have different values? Oh yes, you and your friend. Okay. 1 second. I will get to you in just a second, Claire. Okay, Brandon says you said it all in the sign of Cancer in the 8th house. Honestly, honestly, that's like very nice energy for life purpose and making money. Like it's all conjunct, right? So Jupiter expands whatever area that it's in. Venus is another way you can make money, but it's interesting because Jupiter in the 8th house can make money after marriage, like a lot of money after marriage. Like they can come into money after they get married, but Venus can as well, which is really, really interesting because Venus can tell you about your intelligences in life, and then boom, it's conjuncting the North Node. But it doesn't have to be marriage as long as it's some sort of longer commitment. Also, it could be inheritances, like Jupiter in the 8th can also symbolize inheritances. Basically, it's other people's money, okay? That's what the 8th house deals with. It deals with other people's money, but now in turn, it can also deal with debt, right? These types of things, and anything to do with like the lower aspects of society. Those might be very alluring to you, like fast money, pyramid schemes. I always suggest for 8th house Scorpionic people, stay away from those. You guys are going to save yourselves a lot of time, okay? But North Node in Cancer in the 8th house, that's where you're going in this lifetime. They say the North Node is where we're heading, and they say that when we complete the North Node that we cross out of the Earth plane. I find that to be really interesting to understand that. We're going to look at your South Node, which is in Capricorn in the 2nd house. So your previous lifetime could have been a lifetime that was very much about hard work. And like, it could have been very like linear. It could have been very much like, again, the everyday, like climbing the higher echelons of society, going into like those higher positions and these types of things. This lifetime with North Node in Cancer in the 8th house is more feminine energy leaning. So what do I mean by that? We all have these energies with us. So it's more intuitive. It's more maybe clairsentient. Maybe in this lifetime, it's going to be more about like focusing on manifestation and how to manifest and how to master manifestation, right? Because the thing is, there is an idea and there's a theory, right? But it's different when you put it into practice, you know? And that's like, it's interesting. I have a video on this on my YouTube channel. I think it's like the law of attraction. Oh yeah, that's what the title was. The law of attraction doesn't work unless you do, you know? Because people are going to sell you the law of attraction or manifestation, these types of things. But the question is, when it's not manifesting, why is it not manifesting? That's when you got to go and dig deep. So like the 8th house person is going to be investigating these things, right? Anything to do with energy, anything to do with like trying to turn dust into gold, because you have that capability. That's the thing. So when you have all that 8th house energy, you have that capability to literally create something out of nothing, okay? So that's kind of what's going on with the 8th house. It's money, but it's the energy of money and the energetic aspects of it. So what does that mean, right? Because it's like, okay, if money is energy, well then the question comes down to is like, how much do you value your own energy to get that thing? Those are all like 8th house like thoughts and ideas. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Okay, yes, I'm going back up to Claire. So Claire, you were saying about your friend. Okay, so let's see. You said you guys have different values. So it's interesting. Whatever I was saying with the 8th house is probably going to resonate with you. Or I mean your friend. So your friend might be, so this is the thing, for example, your friend's North Node is in the 8th house and it's conjuncting the sun, and then you have yours in the 2nd house and it's conjuncting the sun. And it's interesting because it's reversed, like your friend's South Node is probably conjuncting your North Node, right? In that case, I'm trying to think right now, because her South Node would have been in the 2nd house. Yeah, and then it's conjuncting your North Node. It's interesting. It's kind of like you guys are helping clear something, right, for each other, and it's on the money axis. So for example, 8th house, 2nd house axis can manifest like this. So everything that I said earlier about manifestation, that's the 8th house, right? Manifesting, trying to manifest. How can I get it? How can I manipulate, right? How can I manipulate energy to get these things? That's all 8th house like things, and the 8th house person thinks like that. But the 2nd house person is like, let's be real, let's be grounded, okay? You know, to get this thing, you have to work hard, and, you know, you have to, you know, set, you know, these types of goals, and you have to go in this type of way. And, you know, you kind of look and see what's available in the physical reality and how can you go about getting your goals in that way. So yes, the goals will be same, but different, if that makes sense. It's like the undertone is there for you guys where it's like, it's money and these types of things, right? Because that's that 2nd house, 8th house access and karma and these types of things. But at the same time, the maybe like method of getting it or going about it is going to be different. And it's like, who is right and who is wrong? Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's our belief, right? So if we believe in something so much, then that's what creates the reality. Like that's true, you know? Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. Sun in Leo in the 10th house, and moon and a rising in Scorpio. Leo like shining and Scorpio is private. Your thoughts on that combination? You know, it's really interesting. Earlier when you asked about the Scorpios and the houses, you know, I was thinking about having Scorpio maybe in the 5th house, you know, is maybe a little bit of a struggle because Scorpio likes to hide. It's exactly that energy with like Scorpio likes to hide, but Leo wants to be seen. You said you have Leo Sun in the 10th house. Leo Sun in the 10th house. Honestly, Sun in the 10th house is a very nice placement for becoming very well known in a niche. I've noticed that. So sometimes people who are, you can be known also in other ways, like publicly, but like a lot of the time, these people are going to be very well known in some form of niche that they're working in. So like, let's say they're, you know, top engineer in an engineering company, or they're a top lawyer in like the lawyer world. You know what I mean? So it's like in that type of way, that's that sun in the 10th house, but it's working with the public in one way, shape, or form. Like that's the overall identity, right? It's the ego. It's conjuncting your midheaven. And you said you have moon and rising, Leo in the 10th house and moon and rising. So is your moon in Scorpio as well? So this combination, you could be good at acting, for example, okay? Because it's like the moon and the rising in Scorpio is going to basically be, because you have the desire to be seen because of Leo energy. Like Leo always needs to be seen, and he needs to be physically seen, right? They need to be physically seen. That is Leo energy. Scorpio is going to want to hide. So sometimes Scorpio energy hides behind things, right? So it's like it finds a way to maybe express itself, but behind things, if that makes sense. So for example, acting, right? They're expressing themselves, they're expressing their emotions behind, you know, the shield of acting, right? Because the thing is, Scorpio energy at the end of the day, it's self-preserving, right? They don't want to come off weak. That's the Scorpio energy, right? It's self-preserving in this way. So it's like if it finds a shield of some sort, right? You'll be able to kind of be seen. It'll satisfy that Leo energy to be seen and the Scorpio energy to kind of be channeled, right? In this way where it's like, I didn't say it, that actor said it, right? Or the character that I'm playing said it. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, there you go, confirmation. You said you wanted to be an actress when you were younger and you were an extra in movies. Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, there you go. Yeah, that's that energy, right? That's that energy, because it's like, you'll notice if you guys, like, that's another thing for people who are interested in getting into astrology, like definitely start to look into other people's natal charts and start to notice the patterns in that as well. And you'll notice a lot of actors and actresses are going to be, they're going to have Scorpio placements. You'll notice they'll have, like, the good ones at least. I mean, it depends, right? Again, that's subjective, I guess, like what's good, right? But at least the ones who are in those like deep, like, you know, maybe drama films, or the ones that can like wear a lot of different hats or like act like a lot of different characters, these types of things, they probably have Scorpio energy somewhere in there, or any water, to be honest, because it's like you're learning people, right? And in a way, when you're acting, you're taking on that personality, right? So you need a level of like almost clairsentience to actually feel it, right? And actually like get into that emotion and feel what it feels like, right? So let's see what else you guys saying in here. Benedicte says, hey, could you talk about Virgo Venus in the 11th house? Yes, Virgo Venus. Okay. So having Venus in Virgo, very interesting. It's a little bit of a challenge having Venus in Virgo, because the thing is, Venus, they say it's exalted in Pisces, but sometimes I think to myself, and I'm like, how, like, in terms of relationships, like, it's not the best placement for relationships, because it's a romantic, it overly romanticizes things, and sometimes it gets disappointed, right? I find Venus in Pisces to be very good at like art, movies, film, like, you know, creative things. Like, it's exalted in that way. Like, I see it exalted in that way. But when it comes to like relationships, I'm like, is it really exalted? You know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, sometimes they like fall in love with the potential and these types of things. So to understand, right, the Virgo Venus, you're the opposition to that now, right? So they say now that the energy falls here, right? So that, and when you have Venus in Virgo, it falls, right? So what does this mean? Well, you know, you have to be critical when it comes to your relationships. You have to be critical of your partners. But that's the thing with like the oppositional energy, because sometimes Virgo Venus can go into the dreaming aspect of Pisces. Oh my gosh, my partner is like, can be like this. I want this type of relationship. And it's like when the person doesn't live up to that, boom, comes the criticism, okay? And like the nitpicking. I've noticed with Virgo Venus, sometimes they can attract like quote unquote incompetent people, or like lazy people, but it's like, it's a chicken and the egg thing. You know what I mean? Because it's like, are they attracting these people because those people are actually incompetent, or is it because the Virgo Venus person wants to be in control and doesn't let the other person do anything, and the other person eventually ends up surrendering? Like, is it this? You know what I mean? So it's a struggle. It is a struggle. It is a struggle. The energy could, you know, go in a positive direction, maybe where you can kind of put a positive spin on it, where it's kind of like, hey, let's, you know, work on ourselves together, you know, or let's do this class together, where it's like you're, you know, bringing the person in. But it's like, if it's nitpicky and like, you know, critical energy, like, I don't know, I can see how it can go in the shadow aspect of having, you know, Venus in Virgo in that sense. Venus in the 11th house, you can meet people through the internet. You can have friends online. You can have international friends, like, you know, through the internet. You can make money online when you have Venus in Virgo. Like, it's good for that. Let's see. You said, oh my God, you put on rose-colored glasses and all of a sudden they shatter and you get super critical. That's what it is. That's why I'm saying I get surprised. You said all your friends you met through TikTok. There you go. That's the 11th house. That's why I get surprised when people say that Venus is exalted in Pisces for relationships, right? When you look at it in terms of relationships, I can understand in terms of, again, like the indulgent aspect of Venus, like the money and like the creative aspect, like, wow, like you can really go off. But when it comes to relationships, those two bounce off of each other. Like Venus, Virgo, Venus, and Venus and Pisces, like you bounce off of that energy, right? So it's like the Virgo energy goes into the dreaming, right? Oh my gosh, it could be like this, and like this person could be like this. And then when that person isn't like that, well, then the criticism comes up, because it's like the struggle with Virgo energy anywhere in a natal chart is like Virgo is ultimately learning that perfection doesn't exist, right? That is what Virgo is learning, right? And it bounces off of Pisces because it goes into the dreamy state. Like it does, it still does, right? Because for the thing is like when we dream and when we think about things in our mind, right? When we go into our imagination, you're going into the higher realms, you're going into the higher vibrations, and these things are all ideal, right? Because there's no resistance in those vibrations. But down here on earth, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of unhealed things and unhealed wounds and like these types of things, right? So it's like, it's a struggle, because for Piscean energy, there's always disappointment attached to these people. You will always feel a disappointment energy attached with Piscean 12th house types of people. And then in turn, sometimes Virgo, except Virgo might be a little bit more like grounded in terms of like the way they express it, right? Pisces might still be like dreaming and in their mind. So that's kind of how the oppositions work with each other. You said you feel like Virgo Venus, you're trying to learn how to accept people. That's the thing. So it's like, yeah, it's basically in the 7th house, right? Like it's in that area of friends and friendship and people, and like you can become very critical. And it's like sometimes Virgo Venus can like drop people as soon as they see like the first thing that they don't like about that person, or it's like, again, because they're holding people to this high standard, but it's like in turn that comes from you holding yourself at a high standard, right? Or being held at a high standard, or just like, again, from young, like maybe you were always like really good at school and like these types of things. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? I'm just going back up. I will get to all of you guys. Thanks for the likes, you guys. Oh my gosh, make sure you guys check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. I talk on there even more. Can a fallen Virgo Venus, oh my gosh, Dom, are you still in the room? Because everything I just said about Virgo Venus is gonna resonate with your question as well. And then you said Jupiter, can it be, okay, you said can a fallen Virgo Venus and Jupiter be strengthened by being in the 7th house, angular house? Oh, that's a really good question. Is Jupiter in Virgo for you as well? Let me know if you're still in the room. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all the people joining. You said you have Pisces, Moon, sextile, Mercury in Capricorn, 12th house. What does that mean? I would have to see that. Let's see what else is going on in here. Midheaven and Lilith are in Virgo. So yeah, that's going to resonate. Everything that I said about Virgo energy, like yes, we were talking about Venus, but that will resonate for wherever you guys have Virgo in your natal charts. Oh, good. You're still in here, Dom. Okay, let me go back up. That's a struggle. I made a video on everything you need to know about Virgo energy, and it's like, it's really interesting. It's really interesting because it's like within Virgo, there's this idealist, right? Like there's like an ideal, you know, like an idealism where they're like dreaming, you know, and they're hoping. And it's like sometimes, you know what I actually heard from somebody else recently that I thought was really interesting? They were basically talking about like how sometimes they set like really high goals for themselves, but then when they don't achieve that goal, they feel like very disappointment and they go like into like super critical energy, I guess. Like they were talking about themselves, right? So I found that to be really interesting because that's kind of like Virgo vibes, right? Because it's like Virgo, like because they're seeking perfection, they're always like pushing to be even better, like them being better, right? But same thing when you have it in the 7th. It's like then they see the potential in other people because that's that Piscean energy that they're tapping into, right? They see the potential in the person. So it's like, oh my gosh, you could be better. And sometimes that's where like that whole critical energy is coming from, because it's like for Virgo, it's like, again, they almost like want to like live into this like full blown like potential that they have is really what that is, but it's in a grounded way. So they want to like almost like the vibe that I get with it sometimes is like they're trying to squeeze everything they can out of the universe, like get like the maximum like potential out of things, right? Including themselves. So it's like when they see people who aren't like that, they don't get it, you know? So that's the struggle with like the 7th house being in there. So let's see what Dom was saying. I'm just trying to find your original question. Let me go back up. He said, fallen Virgo. Honestly, I would have to think about that. Being in the 7th house, Venus in the 7th house. I mean, Venus in the 7th house is a nice placement. You know, it's all about partnerships. But the thing is, the Virgo energy in there can make you still very critical, you know? And honestly, like, the thing is like, here's the thing, like, when people talk about fallen and like this planet falls here and these types of things, like the way that I see it is like, okay, yes, it does. But like the way that I see astrology is like, how can we work on that, you know, to balance the energy within, you know? So it's like being aware that you might have this like huge, like, again, aspiration maybe for your partners in this type of dynamic, right? Because Jupiter in the 7th house, honestly, I like Jupiter in the 7th house because Jupiter in the 7th house is very good at like, you know, basically what happens with them is like they feel like they need to be in a unit to make money, but when they're in that unit, right, this ideal dynamic, it's like boom, you know, they're making money. Like they are able to kind of like, you know, focus the energy. It's almost like they create this stability for themselves. So that's the thing with Jupiter in the 7th house. So let's see what else you guys saying in here. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of you guys with Virgo in the chat. Hey, LOL, how are you doing? What's new? Midheaven and Lilith in Virgo. Tonight the theme is Virgo. Love it, love it, love it. I'm Virgo dominant in Vedic astrology. Addie says Lilith, Venus in Virgo in the 1st house and is conjuncting the ascendant. Having Virgo in the 1st house, basically like you're going to be very critical of the self. And I'm curious to know what your 12th house is in, because the 12th house, I'm curious when you look in the Placidus, is it in Leo or is it also in Virgo? I'm curious to know. But overall, that's so interesting. There's so many of you guys in here with Venus and Virgo. That always happens when I do a live. There's like a group of you guys that like manifest to each other. Let's see. 12th house, Leo. Yeah. So the thing is like Virgo rising, what happens with them is like they tend to want to be treated like royalty. They tend to have past lives that they carry. Like they carry this energy within them that's regal. Because their 7th house, because their 12th house is in Leo. So it's like unconsciously you behave like a Leo. So you expect people to worship you. You expect people to kiss the ground that you walk upon, these types of things, okay? That is when you have a Virgo rising, but that's only if you have Leo in the 12th house. Oh my gosh, another one. There's so many of you guys. Virgo Venus. Yeah, Virgo Venus is definitely a struggle. It's definitely a struggle, this energy, because it's in the area of relationships, right? And it's like, you know, something that can happen for this energy is like, again, if you bounce off of the Piscean energy, you can just kind of just like go off into just like thinking, like you can go too much into the head, right? That's the thing with Virgo, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So even when it comes to relationships, you can overthink relationships, or you can overthink like, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I talk to this person? Should I not talk to that person? Like Virgo, like really like can struggle with overthinking. And on top of that, again, Piscean energy can go into escapism then, right? When it's avoiding. And you know what's interesting, you guys, actually? What's really interesting about Virgo energy is like Virgo energy, okay, this is the way that I see it. When we're balancing energies within us, we tend to go through the extremes, right? So Virgo energy, I find a lot of their life spends like, again, being best student, top notch, like, you know, being the best, you know, just like kind of like doing everything and doing it properly, being competent. And like when they do a job, like they take the job really seriously and they want to be the best employee. But what happens is there's the other end of the pendulum swing. And you wouldn't think that for Virgos, but they can go into that other end of the pendulum swing where it's like they let loose and they go full blown into Pisces, crown town, crown chakra, just thinking, not caring about the routine anymore, having no routine, right? So we kind of want to get into the middle. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You keep having the worst experiences with Leo men. Yeah, because they're probably very karmic for you guys. Oh my gosh, thank you for liking, or for you at least, Addie, because you have the 12th house in Leo. It's karmic, right? So it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's almost like when you meet a Leo person, right? It like, I don't want to use the word triggers, but it's like, yeah, activates, I guess. It activates that 12th house. So it's probably going to bring up a lot of unconscious things for you. Things that maybe, you know, like you don't realize that you were thinking of. Like, that's what the 12th house is. It's hidden, right? So when you attract these people into your life, they're probably like, again, opening up that Pandora's box because it's the 12th house. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You're trying to learn to accept people. Okay, Aries, Venus. Okay, Aries, Venus in the 7th house. So this is another one of them where they talk about it falling, right? Because Venus is ruled by Libra, all right? So when you have Venus in the Aries, I don't know, maybe it's just the way that I see things. I like to see things from both perspectives, right? Yes, you have the shadow aspect of it, but you can also look at it in the divine version and how can you benefit from that energy. So one of the things, what I will say for all of these placements, like in the personal planets, you guys go through secondary progressions, okay? So it's like, yeah, for part of your life, you might be a Virgo Venus, but eventually you're going to progress out of Virgo Venus, and then eventually you're going to go into Libra Venus, right? Depending on the degrees and depending at what point in time. If you guys are interested, type in secondary progressions in Google, type in either astro.com or astroseek, and you guys can see where you're at in terms of your progressions. But Venus in Aries, the way that I always see Venus in Aries, I call them powerhouse when I did the video, because I see this energy as, okay, relationships might be a struggle. Yes, you might come off selfish when it comes to relationships, or you might attract selfish people into your life. Also, when you have Venus in Aries, you might struggle with things like compromise and learning to compromise and these types of things, right? That's Venus in Aries. But this energy is very good at goals, going after things, starting some sort of, you know, like maybe project or venture, because, you know, you guys are going to be very interested in maybe being managers or entrepreneurs. What I will say about Aries energy though is like they're good at starting, but not good at continuing, right? So usually Venus in Aries towards the end of that progression of Venus in Aries, right, starts something. Maybe it's a relationship they started, maybe it's a project that they started that they now are building when they go into Venus in Taurus. So even if you look at the progressions, you might notice, right? Let's say maybe now you're in a long-term relationship, maybe you met that person toward the end of the time with Venus in Aries, because it's like Venus in Aries, okay, it can be two ways. Like either they need someone who's kind of like a trusty sidekick who kind of just like agrees to everything that they're saying, right? So a lot of the time you might attract Libras, but at the same time Libras might like bother you, because sometimes Libras like can struggle with their own identity, right? So that's what the two like energies are showing each other. There can be that. But also this energy can go into like a wanting to be like a power couple type of dynamic, right? Where it's like this person's like, you know, very like solid in their way, and that person's solid in their way, and then they come into this unit together. Let's see. What signs do you consider the most carefree? That's a good question. Honestly, I would say they're Gemini or Sagittarius, like on that axis at least, maybe even more Sagittarius than Gemini. Lilith in Pisces in the first house, a lot of Pisces placements, your Sag Sun and Aquarius rising. You think Pisces placements are difficult for you? What do I think about this? You have Lilith and Pisces in the first house. Do you have Pisces? Is it in the first house overall? Is it also in the 12th house? I'm curious to know. But sometimes what happens, like, okay, you know what's interesting? It's like sometimes we attract people into our life that are actually our disowned self also, like, but we're in denial about that. So like sometimes if you're attracting people who are like very like, you know, like a certain type of way and they bother you, it's actually like an aspect of yourself that like you're maybe not acknowledging or aware that you have. Like, let's say like with Pisces, like maybe you attract people who are, I don't know, like, you know, just like dreaming all the time, cloud talkers, like just like thinking and like, you know, just like, you know, in like another land, right? Well, maybe there's an aspect of you that wants to go into this energy as well, right? That could be something that takes place. Depends. It depends on like what kind of people you're attracting into your life. But Pisces energy, like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Honestly, like it always depends on how evolved the person is, because it's like you have the energy, right? That's what all of this is. Astrology, numerology is the energy that you carry within you, right? So the energy can either go into the divine version of that energy, or it can go into the shadow version of that energy. So I kind of look at both, right? Because it's like most people, when they're unaware and they don't know what's happening, right, within the world or anything within themselves, right, they're in the not divine version, right, or in the shadow, or like operating out of the lower versions of themselves most of the time, right? I mean, that's everybody, right? So that's just kind of how it works with like the subconscious and the unconscious. Let's see. When we do synastry, reading, should we look, oh, that's a good question, natal chart or progressed natal chart? I would say look at both and see what's going on with both. Yeah, look at both, because you can also look at that for transits. You can look at your regular natal chart with transits, and you can look at it with your progressed natal chart as well. It's very complex. Like there's so many layers to astrology. And honestly, like for the individual who is interested in Vedic, like in Vedic, they have so many different charts. They have D this, D that, like there's so many. Like honestly, it really is very, very complex to learn. Let's see. You said you're already Libra Venus in your progressed chart. Hey, that's awesome. What were you? Oh, you were Virgo Venus before. Yeah. It's a nice progression, right? Because it's like, it gives you a little bit of a break. You know, you go more into like the Libra Venus where it's like, now it's all about love and now it's all about relationships and like, you know, like romanticizing in this way. I find Libra energy sometimes to be very much like, when I tap into it, to me, sometimes it feels like a combination of like Cancer and Pisces. Like that's kind of how I see Libra sometimes. Like there's this like hopeless romantic within Libra energy, and sometimes it can fall into codependency like Cancer energy. And you know what's interesting? What's really, really interesting, actually what I was thinking about recently, is how Saturn is exalted in Libra. I thought that was interesting because it's like within Libra energy, there is this like, you know, warrior almost at the same time, which you wouldn't expect and you wouldn't think, right? But It's really, really interesting. What else would you guys like to know about? What else would you guys like to talk about? Let me know in the comments below. Also, one more thing that I want to say for Libra energy as well is like, Libra can be explosive. Like that's what a lot of people don't expect. Like they don't expect Libras to be explosive. They think that they're airy, fairy, and you know, everything's nice, but they bounce off of Pisces. That's the struggle. Sorry, not Pisces. We talked about Virgo so much. They bounce off of Aries. That's the thing. So it's like, it's really interesting because it's like in the beginning, like when Libra's like not, you know, saying what's on their mind, they are going to be passive aggressive. So that's where that Cancerian shadow nature comes in, right? So they can be very passive aggressive, but they can also be very explosive. And it's like when Libra explodes, it's going to be over like something that they've repressed all of their feelings about. And it's like all of a sudden, it's like all these repressed feelings from like 5 years ago. And it's like, why did you never say that? Because Libra was trying to keep the peace. Libra's trying to keep the peace. So it's like Libra energy is always trying to achieve balance. They're not necessarily the most balanced. Let's see. Can you talk about Neptune in Aquarius? Thanks for the likes, you guys. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is called Barbara Talks. Neptune in Aquarius in the first house. You have a lot of first house placements too. Oh, very interesting. So for you with the first house placements, it's very much a lifetime about the self, figuring out what you want to do, who you are, what are your interests, these types of things. Here to start something new, start some sort of new cycle. That is what the first house is all about. So having Neptune in Aquarius in the first house, it's like, okay, wherever you guys have Neptune in your natal chart, you don't see this area clearly. So when you have Neptune in the first house, well, you don't see the self clearly, right? You might always struggle with the self. You might struggle with your image, like your body image. That could be something that you struggle with when you have Neptune in the first house, because it's like you can sometimes feel very exposed, like that's Neptune in the first house. But also alternatively, you can be very dreamy. You can be very just like alluring to people, like very like magnetic and attractive, like that's Neptune in the first house as well, where it's like there's something about you that people want to watch. But you could also attract stalkers, okay? So just something to keep in mind. Is Saturn in partner 7th house good? You said thank you. You're welcome. Saturn in partner 7th house. Saturn's a little bit of a struggle because it's karma. So you guys could just have karma that you're resolving between each other, but karma is not good or bad. That's the way that I see it. It's just a balancing of energies, right? So maybe in a past life, you guys weren't able to be together. Boom, you come through in this one. You're like, let's be together, you know, and resolve whatever you guys didn't get to resolve. It's like unfinished business in a way. That's how you can look at it. Mars, Moon, Lilith, all in Pisces in the first house. Is your rising also in Pisces? I can't remember what you said up there, but having Mars in the first house. Okay, so when you guys have any planet in the first house, it gives you the undertone of having that particular rising sign, okay? So Neptune in the first house is undertone of having a Pisces rising. Mars in the first house is the undertone of having an Aries rising, which makes sense because Aries rising are the individuals who are here to start some form of new cycle for themselves on a soul level, but also for the overall family line, okay? So it's like maybe the whole family did certain things, maybe it's a pattern that they all did, you're kind of straying away from that. Maybe you're the first one to go to college or first one to go to university. Like that is kind of like that vibe with that. Aries rising here. Hey, Kate and Piscean, welcome. That's what Aries rising is. Pisces sun though. Interesting. What's your 12th house in? Is your 12th house in Pisces as well? Oh, you're in Aquarius rising. Oh, that's a very nice placement in there. I love Aquarius rising people and people who have Uranus in the first house because these people are so non-judgmental. And Aquarius rising, you'll notice these people have friends of like all ages, all types of groups. You're going to have like, you're going to belong to a lot of different groups. You could even be like a floater person. And they always have the most interesting stories, Aquarius rising people, because again, they just like have the wildest ideas. Like I want to do this weekend, and then they go do that. And the next weekend they do something completely different and out of the box. I love it. Oh, also Pisces. Pisces is your 12th house. Very, very interesting. Yeah, that's Aries rising. So Aries rising is starting some form of new cycle is really what that is, okay? It's that first house. And it's interesting, like I would like to do maybe like a study or whatever it is. I'm curious to know for people who have Aries rising, if they have a lot of retrograde planets, because so far all the charts that I've seen that have Aries rising a lot of the time don't have a lot of retrogrades in their natal charts. I don't know, I can't make that statement yet, right? Because I haven't seen enough charts to be like, this is what this means. But that's just something that I've observed because it's like the retrogrades, when I see a lot of retrogrades in a natal chart What that says to me is like this person is redoing this lifetime, okay, with like a lot of unfinished business from past lives. Like they're basically coming through to be like, I'm finishing whatever it is that I wanted to finish, whatever it is that I started in these past lives that I wasn't able to finish for whatever reason in that lifetime. When I say a lot of retrogrades, the way that I see it is 3 or more, okay, when you have 3 or more in your natal charts. But yeah, so that's something that I've noticed with Aries rising, because sometimes I've noticed like Aries rising, like because it is that first house, the chart feels very smooth. Everything kind of has like the same, you know, the sign belongs in the same house. There's that vibe. And I've noticed a lot of them don't have a lot of retrogrades in their natal chart. Let's see. All houses lined up. Yeah, it's very smooth. Like it's almost like, you know, like maybe you're incarnated now after a long period of time, or, you know, maybe now you are again coming through. Maybe it's your, I wouldn't say first lifetime, because I think like everyone has had several lifetimes, but that's kind of like the vibe of like freshness, newness. You're excited to be alive. You're excited to be here. Like that's very much Aries rising. So it's like, it's kind of like you're starting a new cycle. And that's kind of how I relate it back to those retrogrades, because it's like the retrogrades kind of feel like a, you know, kind of like an uphill battle for people in their natal chart. Like they kind of feel like there's a force that's fighting against them, right? When you have retrograde in your natal chart. So I've noticed because of the smoothness of the chart, sometimes from what I've seen, at least from the charts that I've seen, they don't tend to have a lot of retrogrades in their natal chart, but I guess time will tell. Let's see what else you guys saying here. You said yes, and oh, you've had stalkers. You also have Sag, Sun, 29th degrees in the 11th house. Oh, wow. Very, very nice. I'm curious to know about your life path number and maybe your day number. Are you born on the 11th, or are you an 11 life path? Let me know. I'm really, really curious. So to calculate your life path, you would add your day, your month, you would add the year, your 9. What's your day number and what's your life path number? 9 life path. What is the day number for you? Like what day were you born on? Oh my gosh, that looks like it's almost like a palindrome. I can't calculate that fast in my mind, but that's very interesting. That almost looks like a palindrome. Palindrome is when you can read it the same way forwards and backwards, which I have yet to find information on, okay, of what that means. So add all those digits, the 2 plus 1 and all of that, and see what it adds to. It's very 3 though. All of those numbers add to 3. You're probably going to be very good at like speaking. Okay, I understand. Yes. I see what you mean. With all of that 3 energy in there, you're probably going to be very good at like speaking, communicating, sales roles, marketing, these types of things. Okay, that is what that 3 energy is all about. People who are born on 3 days tend to be very lucky in their lives, from what I've noticed. Things just kind of end up flowing for them, but you'll have to be in some form of like role where you're speaking or you're communicating or you're working in sales, or again, where you're talking. That's the 3. 9 in numerology is all about humanitarian like issues and being a humanitarian. You said you talk too much. You're so funny. King Piscean said, you said you work in sales. I like it. King Piscean says 2 life path for some reason, 6 or 33. You get 2 life path for some reason, 6 or 33, then born on the 4th. Can you reword that? What's the best placement for Mercury? Really good question. I'm going to say depends what you're trying to achieve with Mercury. So I like Mercury and Scorpio. I don't know, maybe I'm biased towards Scorpio energy, but I love Mercury and Scorpio. These people are always out here playing chess. They're always out here playing chess. They are so smart. They're so intelligent. You'll notice that a lot of them are in roles that are, you know, money, these types of things, right? Because it's all about the mind, right? And it's all about the intuitive mind when you have Mercury and Scorpio. They're honestly always playing chess. They're so smart, so intelligent. 6 planets. Is she never learning? Okay, yeah, that's a struggle. When you have a lot of those retrograde planets, it's almost like a redo lifetime for her. That's the way that I see it. Like, I see it as redo, right? You're like redoing that lifetime. You're like, oh my gosh, again, like how many more times do I have to do it? It depends what the planet is. I have a video on retrograde planets, you guys, if you're interested in learning more, because yeah, there's just so much to say, because each planet means something. And then it also means something when it's in the house, right? But the energy is more so internalized. So I see retrograde energy in a natal chart as like, again, redoing, like there's something that either wasn't learned or you didn't get to master it, or maybe you exited the life before you got to complete that thing, these types of things. You said you love Scorpio. You have a lot of Scorpio friends. Very, very, very nice. Mercury Pisces chess is your game. LOL. I like it. Mercury in Pisces is good for channeling. They're good for music. They're good for like anything that's artsy and artistic. Like that's Mercury in Pisces. Like you think in that abstract type of way. That's what Mercury is, and you speak in that way. So you'll be good at like poetry, and you'll be good at like songs and songwriting, and maybe even writing novels, right? Like anything that is like romantic. That's Mercury in Pisces. But again, at the end of the day, like, because you were asking what's the best Mercury placement, it really depends on what it is that you're trying to achieve, right? Because for someone, let's say, who's trying to achieve like, you know, like success in music and art and film and theater, boom, Mercury in Pisces is very good at that, right? Someone who wants to do maybe something like sales or marketing, boom, Mercury in Gemini. Someone who wants to be, you know, like a lawyer or something of that sort, boom, Mercury in Libra. Or someone who's going to be diplomatic or like, you know, like a business person or like a face of a company or like a PR person, Mercury in Libra. So it's like, it depends, right? What you're trying to achieve. Mercury in Capricorn in the 12th house. Oh, very, very nice. 12th house is going to give you the undertone of that like Piscean energy of like, again, channeling through the mind, music, like having a lot of ideas, vivid dreams. Sometimes Mercury in the 12th struggles with their speech though when they're younger. But Mercury in Capricorn is nice. It grounds that for you, right? It makes you kind of like have that goal and that direction with your energy. You get along best with Sagittarius, maybe because it's your 4th house. Yeah, they probably feel like home for you, right? With that 4th house energy in there. Also, it's going to give you the undertones. When you guys have the 4th house in a sign, it gives you the undertone of having that moon energy, right? So for you, Addie, when you have the 4th house in Sag, the undertone of the moon, right? It doesn't mean this is your moon sign now, but an undertone of your moon is going to now be Sagittarius, right? So an undertone of your emotional nature is going to be connected to Sagittarius. So for you, it's like when you connect with Sagittarius people, they feel like home, right? It's like heart to heart, right? So that's kind of like with 4th house for everybody in their chart. Everyone has the moon sign, but everyone has the 4th house in something else. And whatever you have the 4th house in, it's your IC, it's your home, it's going to be your shadows, it's going to tell you about your like mother and just like the overall home and the upbringing and these types of things. So it gives you the undertone of having that emotional world. All right, you guys, I'm going to sign off now. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Make sure you guys check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your evening.